Welcome to the Mary Mac Show, where we will be talking about your feelings, experiences, and pain following the death of a loved one. Hello, my friends, my warriors. This is Mary Mac from the Mary Mac Show. I am doing a series on death by fentanyl, and I have the privilege of being with Tammy Plakstis today. Is that correct?
That's correct. Very good.
And this series has invited all different types of individuals around our country who have been active in trying to get fentanyl off the street.
Yes.
They have, even in all their grief, have done what they can to be a great advocate for all the people who come after them, to help build awareness so that a lot less children and young adults are safe from the scourge of this drug called fentanyl. It is now the leading cause of death among 15 to 40-year-olds. And there are over 110,000 people who have died last year of fentanyl poisoning. Her son, Dylan, was one of them. He was 29 when he died. He died on 12/9, December 9th of 2020, smack in the middle of COVID. And he wanted to be an organ donor. So a few days later, he technically died on the 15th. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, great. He is one of 6 siblings.
Yes.
That's wonderful. And Tammy now is the moderator of a Facebook group that goes with the Fentanyl Awareness Coalition organization. And you can see the website at the-fac.org, or you can go to Facebook and search for Fentanyl Awareness Coalition, and she moderates that and does an incredible job. So I wanted to say thank you to Tammy for being here, for taking the time to be with me tonight and talk about Dylan and your grief and your advocacy work.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Dylan was my firstborn child out of 6. He was on the wrestling team in high school. He was just a regular young man. You know, he loved music. He recorded a lot of songs on YouTube. His main song was Hope, and he called himself in that song actually a warrior. And I think he knew that he was a warrior.
That's wonderful. I believe that all of us who endure the death of a loved one, we're warriors.
Yes.
It takes a lot of courage to keep moving forward.
Yeah. So Dylan, like I said, was just a regular kid, high school, into music, on the wrestling team. After he graduated high school, he started exhibiting some issues where we didn't know what to diagnose him. It was like ADD, which most of the kids have ADD. So we're like, okay. And as time went on, he started drinking, but it was not like he wasn't an active user. I mean, he smoked marijuana here and there, but he wasn't a drug user. And he was hospitalized a couple of times for alcohol poisoning, but then he started exhibiting some behavior that was a little strange, and that's when we were trying to get help for him. My sister got involved because my sister lived in New York and I live in Florida, and she knew a lot of people in the healthcare industry, and she tried to get Dylan some help, and she landed up getting him diagnosed where he had Social Security, that he had schizophrenia. He suffered from schizophrenia. I never really truly believed in that diagnosis, but that's what he was. But I noticed once he was on the medicine, he was doing better. He was able to hold down a job. He was, not hanging out in the streets. He used to go out a lot, but he was young. So, I mean, it can't always be that it was because of the schizophrenia. But he was on that medicine and he got the shot in his arm. And he was living in a place called TSI New York. And it was a facility where it would help them go to work and have a place to live. And he was in this house with four other young men around his age. And it was around COVID time. Uh, in September, Dylan called me and he started asking a lot of people in the family for money. And when I had a conversation and I said, Dylan, what's going on with you? Why do you keep on asking me for money? And he's like, well, I'm experimenting with cocaine. And I was like, what is wrong with you? What are you doing? You're on these meds. And, my dad died when he was 48. You want to be like your grandpa Eddie? I was like, please, I'm begging you. And he's like, Ma, it's okay. And I'm like, where are you getting this from? And he said, I'm getting it, Ma. This guy blessed me. He gave me $100. And I said, Dylan, please. And I begged him. And after that, that was September, he was clean and he was doing fine. He was back on his regular routine, going to work. And the night before his passing, he had called me up. It was right after his birthday. And I was talking with him because I told him I had sent him some packages from Target and that he for his birthday, so to expect it. And when he said, okay, Mom, and then he asked me at the end of the conversation, he said, can I get $10? And I said, for what, Dylan? He said, cigarettes and beer. And I said, Dylan, are you sure that's what you're going to do with the $10? And he said, yes, Mom, just cigarettes and beer. And he said, also, Mom, can you please make sure that you get in touch with my dad and make sure he's okay? Because Dylan's father worked for the New York City Transit Authority. He ended up having cancer, and he was in treatment. He was almost done with chemo and remission. So he said, please check on my dad, make sure he's okay. And I said, okay, Dylan. And I said, you have work tomorrow? He said, yes. And that was it. That was the end of the conversation. When I hung up the phone with him, I still, as a parent, felt like I was damned if I did and damned if I didn't, giving him the $10, even though it sounds like, okay, it's only $10. It wasn't about the $10. It was about my worry that maybe he was going to do drugs again.
Right.
So the next morning, I went about my day. I was going to call him, but I remember he told me he was going to work early. So I said, all right, I'll give him a call in the afternoon, check on him. And all day I had this weird feeling. And about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I get this phone call from my sister. And she said that Dylan was rushed to the hospital, that his heart stopped 3 times.
Oh my goodness.
And I made the most blood curdling scream that every angel parent that I talk to has the same scream. I thought I was going to have a heart attack and she said, well, maybe there's hope, just, get ready. Cause I live in Florida and Dylan lived in New York City. I have one daughter named Gianna. She lives here in Florida with me. The rest of his siblings and the family is in New York. So I was waiting to find out, get word. What do I do? They're like, calm down. I had sent my son to the hospital to see what was going on. And they still didn't really give a clear anything yet, diagnosis. Like we're still shimmering around. So the next day, Dylan's father was in the hospital when they pronounced Dylan brain dead.
Oh.
And he sent out a text saying, and at that time I'm like, oh my God, all right, what do I do? I kind of froze. For for a while, I just couldn't even think clearly. Like, do I have to get on the plane? I got to get a plane ticket. For a minute, I was shocked. And my friend, my best friend, Kathy, I called her and I said, I got to get on a plane. She's like, what do you mean you got to get on a plane? You need to get on a plane right now. Like, cause I was like, oh, maybe I can go tomorrow. She's like, no, you need to go now. It was
Yes.
like, I wasn't even processing anything at the time. I was just in such shock. So I just like kind of got in the car, told my daughter, drive me to the airport. I was booking a airline ticket, to get to New York. So, which I did. And when I got to the hospital, the doctors took me in and they told me that all medical intervention, what they could do, was done. And the only thing that we could do was donate his organs. And I agreed immediately. Dylan's dad agreed immediately. My sister was actually Dylan's healthcare proxy because she was in a lot of medical things in New York and she knew people, and supposedly they did her favors by putting Dylan in this home in TSI New York. The other thing I forgot was that I didn't forget, but anyway, I failed to say the reason why Dylan started using was because Dylan was placed in a facility where it was a place for him to live. He had Social Security, he had a job, and prior to this, he was asking everybody in the family for money, and that was just not something he did. He didn't need money. He had a place to live, he had a job. He didn't need money like that. He was taken
Right.
care of. And there happened to be a dealer, and I'm going to call him Bubba. Bubba, the dealer, lived next door to an agency where Dylan was supposed to be getting services, and it was COVID time. And I thought my son was in a place where he was being monitored, or there was somebody coming and checking on them and making sure they were okay. And meanwhile, it wasn't owned by like a lot of medical facilities here in Florida. I work with people with mental illness now. That's my background. I'm a culinary arts instructor. And
Wow.
there's an agency called Bay Care here in Florida that has housing for all these people, that helps them with housing. And I couldn't imagine a drug deal having that Bay Care, which is a big agency, have like drug dealers living next door providing drugs to the neighbors.
Right.
So basically this Bubba was going around offering people in the house free drugs, and that's how Dylan started. And like I said, he had stopped. The night before his passing, I had his phone. Dylan was on Snapchat. Dylan had
Oh,
Bubba on Snapchat.
oh
And
man.
Jaime De La Porta, he's very famous, one of the angel
Yes.
parents. Jaime, he's the one that went after Snapchat. But so Dylan was on Snapchat. Now the thing is, when you're trying to get these dealers, because I went after Baba, because Mama's not going to let this go, especially after losing my child. Baba lived next door, so I had Dylan's phone. I linked. It's hard now with these dealers because a lot of them use these phones that are throwaway phones. They
Throwaway
don't have,
phones, burner
yeah,
phones.
yeah, right. So burner phones. So they use these burner phones. So usually you can't, it's hard to get the dealer. And that's what a lot of parents sometimes say, well, I have the phone, but you have to do a lot of little detective work also.
Yes.
So Bubba was very cocky. Bubba had the same phone number for like 10 years. And Bubba was on Snapchat. And so one of my family members was really, really smart. So they kind of like fed into Bubba, and started like talking to Bubba and linking Bubba to his number. So we did
Okay.
that. We did the little detective work. So now it's difficult for me because I live in Florida and Dylan passed away in New York. So I have to deal with the police in New York.
Right.
My sister at that time was like, she didn't want to be bothered. She was worried that, somebody's going to get killed or this or that. And she didn't want nothing about it. And I was just like, I have to do this. I have to do this.
Were
So
you, were
anyway,
you, Tammy, were you working with the homicide detectives in one of the precincts?
I did. Yeah, I did work, but he was just, yeah, he was a detective, but he was in the drugs,
Yeah.
yeah. So I went down when I went down to New York again after Dylan's passing. It was like in June. I stopped at the precinct where Dylan lived, and I went into the police station because I had to get Dylan's autopsy back because at that time when I was doing this, I didn't have 100% proof that Dylan died from fentanyl. So it took like almost 5 months to get the autopsy back. So
Wow.
once I seen, because it's the corners are so backed
Slow.
up with this going on every day with all these people passing away from this poison. So it took that time. So I go to the precinct. I have Dylan's autopsy. I had like the police report, everything. And I go there and I'm like, listen, I need to speak to somebody. And they're like, lady, what do you want? I said, my son passed away. This is almost 5 months ago. I'm here. Why are you coming now? I said, because I live in Florida and I needed to wait for the autopsy. I need to speak to somebody. They're like, lady, we have these cases all the time. Like, you're just one of those people. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, well, can you pull up the 911? They said to the end. I said, can you pull it up? Oh, we can't find it. So then they finally punched in the address and they're like, oh yeah, we found it. And they're like, lady, we don't think we can help you. I started like crying in the precinct. There was like pray to Saint Michael or no on the wall, you know. So I started praying to Saint Michael in the precinct, and I'm like, can somebody please just listen to me? So finally, they called narcotics and they got this detective. His name was Detective K, and he agreed to take Dylan's case. And I gave him all the information about Bubba and did all that. It took a little while. He did perform a sting, and Bubba sold fentanyl and heroin to two undercover detectives.
Oh.
Okay, so then the Detective K was like, great, Bubba's gonna go away for a long time, and you got justice for Dylan. A lot of people don't get it. I'm like, okay, great. So I'm waiting. Months go by. Bubba was in jail, but Bubba wasn't in jail for Dylan. Bubba was in jail for something else. Bubba is still walking the streets of New York City.
Oh my God. So
Okay.
why couldn't they make it stick?
I don't know. And then it was like first he told me, the detective told me first, you got justice for Dylan. He's gonna go away for a long time. And then I contacted the detective after that, like what happened? Why is he still out? And then I don't get any response anymore. But this man is still on Facebook, and I landed up finding out that he also was responsible for the death of this other gentleman named Joey. And I did some fishing around in Facebook, and I seen that this guy Joey, they called him Joey Circus, was died. Like after the detective first told me, oh, everything's gonna be okay. I was fishing around and I was like, because that he hung out with Bubba, this Joey, and I seen that he was dead, and I'm like, oh my god. So I contacted the guy Joey's brother, and I was like, I need to talk to you now because I know Bubba is responsible now for your brother's death. He killed my son, So the brother took a little while to respond. It was a matter of a couple months, and I also messaged the guy who passed away, Joey's girlfriend, and she finally contacted me, and then we started doing stuff together, looking on Bubba. She showed me like pictures in Bubba's home of all the drugs he had in his house.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and still nothing has done. You know what makes my blood boil? I see this man posting on Facebook, and you know what it's like? It's a smack in my face, and all
Yep.
the parents and it's like I'm like, I still at that point felt a little discouraged, and I'm not gonna say I wasn't, but I said, you know what, I gotta keep on going, and I just kept on saying, you know what, I'm gonna still advocate, I'm gonna still do because a lot of parents have gotten justice, and yes, I'm very upset that I didn't get justice for Dylan, for the way he dirt, but you know what, I know that I did the best that I could, and I tried
Yes.
my best, and you know, that's it. I
You
did
took
whatever
it,
I
you
could.
took it, you took it to the max.
Yeah. And then I just had to say,
Yeah.
So I can do. So now I just took my grief into activism and trying to comfort, help, and just be supportive. And I love doing the graphics that I do for Fentanyl Awareness Coalition and Angel Moms because they make us feel pretty and it makes us, we have fun with it. And we call everyone, even though we're in all parts of the country, all of us that are going through this, it's like we've become a family. Like we
Oh,
all
yes.
form, and it's weird. And even though it's like through Facebook or going to the rallies, we're going to go back to Washington D.C. in September the 23rd,
Yeah.
and it's like we're just got this connection. It's like we know all our babies are together. They're all there. They're watching us. Like, good job. Like I just feel like it's just such a bond. It's just an unexplainable bond that we all have. Really
Because
is.
you can totally relate to each other. When one of you says, I know how you feel, they really do.
Yeah.
It's not like sometimes after a funeral, somebody will come up to you and say, oh, I know how you feel because my so and so died. And you're
Yeah.
like, nah, it's not the same thing.
No. No. And this is murder. I mean, we've tried. People want to say it's they chose. I've even had people. My own sister at the time, and she really peed me off when we were in the hospital before we knew it was fentanyl because they were saying, oh, it may be elephant tranquilizer. We don't know exactly what it was, in the hospital we were in Warren. And she's like, well, he chose. And now this is my sister. He chose. And I was like, don't. I want to like really like, I said, don't you ever say that he chose because even if he did chose, it didn't mean he deserved to die. Years ago, my father was an addict, all right, did plenty of stuff. They don't just die like that, okay?
No,
This was, people are experimenting the first time, young adults, the pills that are out there, kids have a pill, they take a pill, they didn't know what it was. And then the parents are finding every day their kids are dead in their rooms, and I'm doing my best now. Like I said, I took my grief into activism. I also am working with people that have mental disabilities. I talk to them about fentanyl all the time, and it was kind of good. Actually, yesterday I took one of my members to the store, and he said, "Tammy, I just wanted to let you know something." He's like, "I spoke to my sister last night, and I told her don't take a pill from anyone, even if it's an aspirin, because the lady Tammy, her son Dylan died from fentanyl, and he was, did one thing, and he didn't know what it was that it was in there, and he passed away. So he told her don't whatever said." And he goes, "Thank you for letting me know that because I didn't even know anything about fentanyl."
yeah.
And
Most people don't.
no, no,
I was
until it
I
happens to
was
you.
getting coffee. I was getting coffee last weekend and I don't even know how it came up, but the I don't remember how it came up. But the person that was ahead of me, young, a
Yeah.
young man, he couldn't have been more than like 23 or 4. And
Mhm.
I don't know how we got into the conversation, but I'm like, do you know about fentanyl? And he's like, I heard about it, but I don't really know that much. I'm like, well, let me just tell you, don't you dare take anything but prescription medication because only one little gram, in a joint even, or Coke
Yes.
or whatever. I said, or one pill that you think is one thing and it's another. I said, you can't afford to experiment. Those days are over.
No.
And he's
No.
like, wow, I'm really glad you told me that. I didn't have any idea.
Yeah.
So I was like, good.
That's good. Yeah. Just at least that it makes you feel good because you're like, all right, I'm telling somebody. I wish somebody would have told me. I wish I would have known, or my son would have known, because I know for a fact my son did not know what that
Yeah.
was. He did not know. He did
Yeah.
not know.
Yeah.
And it was like, even when they got his autopsy back, he didn't have anything. He didn't even have weed in his system. He had nothing, just the fentanyl. It
Wow.
was, yeah.
So
And
then he took a pill that was completely fentanyl.
he didn't take a pill. He used what he thought was cocaine. You know.
Oh, okay. And it
Yeah,
was laced.
yeah, yeah. There was like hardly. There wasn't even any cocaine really in the system. It was like,
Wow.
yeah, it was very, very like minute. Yeah, it was mostly pretty much fentanyl. But I
Oh,
think, yeah, it was just, yeah, 1.6, so it's like, I don't know too much about the chemistry and biology stuff, but 1.6 like is like a grain of salt. So I'm saying usually they said to kill, it could be like two, it can be between that. I mean, any one pill kills, it doesn't matter, but because I think he was clean, it hit him even harder because he
yeah.
was not using, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there are so many of the victims who have never tried anything before,
Right.
and they
And
thought they were getting Adderall or Paxil or, something that is common or we
yes,
think is common.
Percocet or
Yes, because for whatever reason, they were having a hard time either in college or dating or whatever. And
yeah,
they felt like that would smooth things over for them. And little did
yeah.
they know that the whole pill was fentanyl.
Mm. Or also some people that have, meds that were prescribed to them, and then even through COVID, they couldn't get the meds or whatever, and
Yes.
then they would probably reach out to somebody that, oh, I'm behind, I didn't get my pills yet, and would want something,
Right.
maybe something innocent, such as that. But I mean, for the most thing, the social media has a lot to do with it because these kids were getting like pizza delivery. They would have drugs delivered to their door,
I
like
know, it's
Snapchat.
crazy.
Yes.
And
And
what
it's
bothers
just,
me so much about Snapchat is,
mhm,
they get away with it because it's the kind of app where all the interaction goes away so quickly. So it's almost
right.
like anonymous.
Yes. Yes. And and also because a lot of these dealers too, like I was told, that they use those burner phones, and it's hard to, a lot of parents, there has been several parents that have had gotten justice, for their children, but it's not as much justice as there is death, that's happened. And
Yes.
it's just very sad that right now we're living in these times where I feel like us parents, like we're forming our own little army, and it's like we're like alone. Yes, the DEA has stepped up and they've been trying, they're with us. That Thaddeus Cleveland, he's been supporting a lot of the Angel families. He's on the border. So we get a lot of the support that we need, but we're doing this all alone. We're all putting up billboards on our own. All of us, all those billboards, that's us parents, doing that, paying for that,
Right.
we're doing it. We're the ones that are advocating. Finally, we had fentanyl on the 21st, we had the fentanyl awareness.
Awareness
And
Day. Mm-hmm.
yeah, and they were in Times Square, and Dylan was in Times Square a couple of times. We did videos with Angela Marie. That's Nick's Never Alone. She had put up. She gave us. She did it. She choreographed the thing, and we were all our angels were featured in Times Square. We all had they had 15 seconds of each. So Dylan was in Times Square. So I actually had my daughter go down, and she filmed it, and I put the song, I don't know why, Glenn Campbell song, like a rhinestone cowboy. I made the video of Dylan in Times Square, and I had a picture of Dylan when he liked to go to Times Square a lot, and I had a picture of Dylan, and one of his friends put, Dylan always wanted to be like a star, and there he was in Times Square. He had his little thing over there in Times Square. But us, we're doing it all. We're doing it, and it's time for the government and just do something about this because this is our whole generation. We lost a whole generation. It's just so sad. It's just really sad. But like I said, I turned my grief into activism. And I think although Dylan's death, I'll never get over it. it made me a better person, if that makes any sense. I feel like I'm a little bit
Interesting.
more
Yeah.
nicer. I'm a little more understanding of people. I'm a little less judgmental. I think it made me look at myself as a person a little bit differently than I did before. Before I was always a nice person, but I feel like I was always a little sometimes judgmental or, and I just said, you know what, I have to make my son proud of me. And he always was, but I just said, you know what? I want to make Dylan proud. Like, I want to do, because he told me too. He was like, Ma, he said something one time. He's like, I had a food trailer. He's like, I want you to get that food trailer on the road. And he's like, you do that. We're the champions, mommy. You got to do this. And I just was like, I just want to make you proud of me. I want you to see that I'm trying to be there for you and reach out. And that's why I decided to go into working with people with mental illness. And I feel like through them, I'm helping, through Dylan, like Dylan's with me in this, like I'm helping these people to be the best that they can be and, educate them,
That's
hopefully save
wonderful.
life.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Because I think that um, mental illness is not focused on enough.
No.
It just isn't. And there's a lot of people who suffer with that in one form or another. And
Yeah.
they really do need our help. They need someone to advocate for them.
Yeah.
Sometimes their own family have kind of shunned them,
Yeah.
you know, because they're not, maybe they didn't get married or, they don't have a relationship that's they can count on,
Yeah.
they don't have children. And it just really annoys me, that um, they're so discarded in a sense, you know, from society. And it's just not good. It's not nice.
Yeah. Dylan has a daughter. Her name
Oh,
is
wow.
Candace. Yeah, she had the same birthday as Dylan, December the 5th. But he was also very upset about some things with that too, because he had an on and off relationship with the mother, but when Dylan had some issues with his mental illness, she didn't really want Dylan around her for a while, so that hurt him a lot too.
Sure.
But prior to his death, actually in November, he died in December. He saw his daughter. He hadn't seen her for a long time, and my son facilitated it. And he came and saw his daughter and spent time with her, took pictures, and he was finally happy. Like he was finally happy, and I'm glad at least he got to spend that time and see his daughter. And
Absolutely.
yeah,
Not to mention that she will always remember that.
yeah, and she did. She came to the funeral, and that was really hard for me to do too, with her. And her mom was very nice about it. She came to the funeral too. And, it was just sad to me that it had to come down to him passing away, that he finally before he passed away, that he finally got to see his daughter after some time and then, passing away. It was really sad. It was really sad, but,
Is he buried up
that,
north?
what?
Is
I'm
he
sorry.
buried up north?
Yes, yes, he's buried in North, and he's in White Plains Rural Cemetery, White Plains. Yeah, and that was another thing because I lived here in Florida. Dylan died in Queens, and my children lived in Middletown, New York, which is Orange County. So I had to find a place. I tried to find a place that was like kind of medium ground, that was for everybody to be able to go visit him. And it was also when I put it on Facebook that Dylan passed away. I had an old junior high school friend that saw that Dylan died and was like, "Hey, listen, my brother's a mortician. Get in touch with him." And I didn't even know. I mean, I was at the point like a funeral. How do I do all this? There's a lot of parents that I mean, there's nothing wrong with cremation or whatever you want to do. That's a personal choice. If you want to cremate, if you want a natural burial. I just was like very old fashioned. My family buried that's the way we did it. I was like that. And then I was like, but I don't know if I'm going to have the money to be able to afford all this. I may have to do cremation. And my kids were like, Ma, no, that's not what you want to do. So we're going to do it. And my sister and I went to the funeral parlor and we were picking out the casket, which is something that, and I looked at this blue casket. I was like, oh my God, I think he'd like this. And my sister was like, started hyperventilating and she's like, like this. She's like, he wants the blue. He wants the blue. And I was like, okay. But we were able, even though it was COVID time, we were able to have his funeral on video. And so it's still on the website from the funeral parlor. And we were lucky at COVID time. There were funerals like, gravesite and you got to go. Dylan had a full funeral for 2 days and beautiful funeral. And I didn't know how I was going to be able to pay for this, but we did like a GoFundMe and the family got together. Dylan's dad, we all did. And he had a beautiful funeral, beautiful farewell. And he went out in style. And his brother, Dylan, we put a white suit because Dylan's daughter said that had a dream of her daddy in a white suit.
Oh,
So
wow.
we put Dylan in a white suit, and his brother Klaus wore the same white suit at the funeral in honor of
Oh,
his brother. So
oh,
yeah, and that's pretty much it. But Dylan was a very kind, loving soul, and I know he's still around. And that's another thing. I never thought that I would believe that, in seeing your loved one after they pass. But Dylan came to me in an orb when he first passed away, like right before he did the organ donation, he came in an orb. So then after that, about a month and a half later, he came to me in an orb again, but this time his face was in the orb. And I'm like,
ooh,
okay. And it was him, it was a little boy, like when he
okay.
was around 10. And I started Googling about it. I'm like, what is this? Why does he come to me as a little boy? And they say sometimes they'll come to you when they felt that they were at their best at time in their life. So that made
Wow.
sense to me that he came to
Wow,
me
that's amazing.
around 10 years old because that was like, I guess, the best time of his life.
Uh-huh.
So that time, and then I had met at the first rally that I went to. So I'm going on my third rally for lost voices of fentanyl. All us parents. This is going to be the third year that we're going.
Yes.
The first rally, I met a lady from Puerto Rico that her son Derek, he died of fentanyl, but they caught him in time. His girlfriend got him in enough time, so he survived fentanyl. And so she came to the rally and she has a group in Puerto Rico. So we had met, we happened to stay in the same hotel and we just kind of clicked. And Dylan was into like anime, Pokemon, all that kind of stuff. So when I was at the rally, I was like, Dylan, please give me a sign. Please give me a sign. So as the rally was over, we were walking back to our hotel and it was pouring rain and we had to stop and we went by a bank and there was like a little bench. All of a sudden, the Derek, that's the boy that died fentanyl, came back from fentanyl. He picks up and there's a Pokemon card by the bench, and I was like, wow, I couldn't believe that. So then after that, I remained friends with the lady. We talked on the phone, and she sent me one day. She like sent me this video, and she's like, "Tammy, we were just talking about Dylan because Dylan, I have CDs. Dylan, I made CDs for Dylan when his funeral. Breaking things here. Um, well, you can't really. Dylan had made a CD of his song Hope, and I gave it out in his funeral. And I gave it out in DC. When I went to DC, I was like, oh, do you want to, this is my son's song. So I gave out his music. So I gave one to the guy, Derek, the one that found the Pokemon card. And they were playing it and they were talking about Dylan. After that, they went outside their house and she videotaped it. I have it. And the sky was like, she said, I saw like angels and all that. And Dylan's face, I'm like clear as day, was in the sky. And I was like, wow, I would
Wow.
never believe these things. Like I would be like, if somebody told me that, you're crazy. But now I believe. I believe. So that's what I know. Our kids are so young. Just
Oh
they
yeah,
just
without a doubt.
yeah.
I had many instances where Angela would, remind us that she was around.
Yeah.
Music boxes going off during dinner, things like that.
Like the 111 or the clocks going. Dylan likes to do. He likes to do the clocks. He likes to do music a lot. Music like that song. Always like the every time I hear "Every Rose Has Its Thorn," I know it's him. For some reason. Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, but I have my moments, grief comes and goes. Like I can be smiling and laughing, and then sometimes I feel a little guilty for smiling and laughing, but I know he would want me to, that he doesn't want me to be sad, but
Yeah.
it comes and goes. Grief is it I don't want to it's not better, but I guess you have no choice but to live with it and deal with it. But doing the advocating that we're doing and spreading awareness has really helped my mental state, that I'm kind of proud to say that I haven't had to take any antidepressants. I haven't had to speak to a therapist, even though maybe I could, but I really am actually surprised that I've handled this as well as I could, because I have no choice but to, and I have to keep going for my children,
Right.
and that's it. And I just know that in my head that one day I will see him again and we will reunite, and I just have to keep that in mind and just keep on moving forward, and hopefully maybe eventually, we can get this to stop somehow. I mean, it's never going to 100% go away, but just get this death. The 300 children, 300 adults a day are dying. And it's just horrible.
Say that again.
300 young adults are dying every day from fentanyl poisoning, and it's not just that they're users; they're being poisoned, they're being murdered. Our children were murdered, and it needs to stop. And nobody wants to talk about the border, but the border needs to be shut. The border needs to close. And I don't want to blame any political parties, because I'm not going to go there, but I will just say that we need to close the border in order to keep this country from where existence. They're killing everybody off. We're being killed off, and it's scary. It's really scary. It's really
Yes.
scary. We're like, I feel like we're living in the end of times, you know?
I think we are actually because we've gotten to a point where everything is good or evil.
Yeah. And I don't know, it's different things, I don't want to get too much into religion because I don't want to offend anybody, but I had read about something called the yellow China. You know, it's kind of, this is what's going on, in my personal opinion, is very biblical also, because it's kind of was predicted with China. And I didn't know if exactly it was going to be fentanyl, but it's just a lot of things that I tie into religion and what's going on now. It's telling me that, we're in hell. We're in hell. And
Yeah.
I think we're living in the end of times, like it's
Right.
just very scary. It's very scary.
Yeah, I agree. And it's so orchestrated from the cartels in Mexico and how
Yes.
they bring it up through the ports, the port of
Yes.
entry. And
Yes.
a lot of people don't realize that they're recruiting, the blonde-haired, blue-eyed boy to be the carrier or the
Right.
courier so that, the agents at the border don't suspect them as much. but they're
Yeah.
the ones, and maybe they don't have enough dogs, drug dogs that can sniff out drugs, but they need to get more.
Well, also, these cartels are even violating their own people, that because of the open border, their own people are dying coming here, because, and also they to get even in the border to cross, they're dying in the fields every day. You're seeing on the news all these people, even their own people, they're killing their own people. They're trafficking. They're It's just a big mess. Even the state said, there's a gentleman named Derek Maltz. He's with the ex-DEA, and he advocates for us a lot. And he's marched with us to DC, and he went to the state senate, and they were saying, well, our our family came here, and we came to the United States, and we want to give everybody opportunity for these people to come here. But they don't even realizing they're using these Mexican cartels, even these people that are crossing the border, they're using their own people. They're harming their own people. They're killing their own people. They don't care. It's greed. It's money. This is your ancestors. My grandparents came here. Okay, my grandmother came from Italy. All right, I can still go on ellisisland.com and see when my grandmother came when she was 17 years old. And
Yes.
you know what it had to be? You had to be a craftsman, like you had to have a skill.
Yep.
Okay, and you had to have money. I know because I looked on ellisisland.com, and my grandmother told me. And they owned a butcher shop. They had to have a trade. They had to be like a carpenter or something. So
Yep.
why is it that's a smack in the face to me as an American, all right, that I know where my people came from. These people, we don't even know where they're coming from. All right. And they're paying thousands of dollars to these cartels to bring them here to this country, and they're dying at the border. That's why I was telling you about Mr. Cleveland. He's there. He sees it all the time. They're pulling dead bodies out of it. They're dying. They're doing trafficking, and that movie Freedom too. That was a good movie. Did you see that
Oh,
movie?
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that they got to do that. Really am.
Yes. It's good. They were saying in the movie theaters that they were buying up the tickets to make it look like it was sold out because they didn't want people to see the movie.
Right. I heard about that.
Yeah.
Or I also heard a story where they went in to go see the movie and they claimed that the projector wasn't working. They were
Yeah.
doing like all kinds of stupid stuff like that to, make people not
Not
have that
really.
experience. And I that's nasty. Just
It's
nasty.
controlling. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I thought this was the United States of America that we have.
No, no. I don't know if it is anymore, actually. But
No.
I feel grateful that they went out of their way, Mel Gibson and James Cavilla,
Mhm.
how do I pronounce his name?
I can't say it either, to be honest with you.
Caviezel,
Yeah.
Jim Caviezel,
Vivo.
and phenomenal actor. I
Yes.
During COVID, we watched Point of Interest. I think that was
Oh,
the
I
name
haven't
of
seen
it,
that one.
and he was in there. And
Oh,
it was
really?
like amazing. I mean, I think there were like 10 seasons.
Wow.
And it was way back before they started making like shows that had 4 parts or 6 parts. It was decent the whole season from like
Wow.
September to June. And so every day we would watch a few of those episodes because what else were
Wow.
we doing during COVID, right?
Right. Exactly.
But
Eating.
I really enjoyed his acting. And then he's a big time Christian, you know,
Uh-huh.
and so is Mel Gibson,
Yeah.
big time.
Yes.
And so, both of them had the same, feeling that the things that are coming out of Hollywood and the way that Hollywood is, acting for a long time, they don't want to be part of it. And I can't
No.
blame them, you know,
No.
can't blame them. So I hope they do something in like Nevada. That's what they're talking about, making a
Oh, really?
second, yeah, making like a second or a comparable Hollywood in
Oh,
Nevada.
That'd be
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be great? And the other
Yes.
person involved is Mark Wahlberg. He's
Oh,
talking about it too.
Marky Mark.
Yeah. And he doesn't want to raise his kids in California. I can't blame him.
No, it's not. It's not good. I mean, I at that point, I'd rather be here in New York. Honestly. I wanted to show you something else. I was just looking at this bracelet. So, us angel moms, we give gifts to one another. We show, you know, love for one another. And I just wore this today. It's one of the angel moms just sent this to me and she was like, I was just thinking about you. I don't know if you can see it, but anyway, I was just thinking about you and sent me a card. And this is the way us angel parents express love to one another.
I
And
think that's remarkable.
yeah, and Andrea Summerfield Lee, you'll be having her next.
Uh-huh.
She is a wonderful soul, and it's like it's so amazing sometimes. Like we just get like sometimes we feel like we all know each other, but we just like met, but we like have this bond, and it's pretty special. So I really am happy and thankful that I have people around me that became like my second family and we just support one another. And it's kind of sad to say, but I get more support from the angel moms than I do my own family.
Yes,
So
many. I have to say, I'm in that boat. I got so much more support and love, and it was like a second family after Angela was murdered. And my family just still doesn't understand what we went
really,
through. Yeah,
wow.
they don't. And, they wanted me to be back to the way I was, the same happy-go-lucky, they
It's
wanted me to be how I was before, and I was never going to be that again.
no,
You
no,
just aren't. You,
no.
it's like there's a division between before Angela died and after Angela
Right.
died.
Yeah.
And because of that, that line, I don't know if you call it line of demarcation or whatever, but that line,
Yes.
forever changed us.
Yeah.
And you can't go back. You'll never be
No.
that other person.
That would be
You
again.
live that life up until that day, and then you're now living a different life.
Yeah.
And it takes us a long time just to accept this new personality we are, right?
Yes.
It takes a
Yes.
really long time for us to become or grow into this
Yeah.
new personality. So the last thing we need is people telling us how we should be a different way. We should act like we did before. So
No,
you have,
it doesn't go away.
unfortunately, it doesn't. And unfortunately, there's just people in your life eventually that they were there for that season, right?
Right. Breathing
And
the season.
and that season's over.
Yes. Yes.
And you have to let them go by the wayside. And people think that's really cruel, but it's not,
No.
because if you're going to survive and move forward, there are just going to be people in your family and your friends who you no longer associate with for your own good.
Exactly. Exactly. And and it's okay because I'm fine now that it hurts me sometimes that my own sister who was very close to Dylan doesn't really even speak to me. She told me when I was putting up billboards to Dylan, stop showing his face. And I said, you know what? You told me to stop showing his face. Guess what? I'm going to show his face and I'm going to make sure.
Even more.
Yeah, that's why I started doing the graphics and then getting into the billboards and everything because I'm like, going to show his face.
Yeah, I wonder why she would say that. Like, what's the point?
I don't know. It's like, I don't know why, because I don't I have
Was
no,
she embarrassed? Maybe she was embarrassed.
maybe she's embarrassed, but there's nothing to be embarrassed about, you know?
I know, but there are people who they don't want to tell the truth about how their loved one died.
Yeah,
I've heard,
she's in the health industry, so, and with kids, so I don't understand why she would do that. But it was always like kind of like she was the one that was the mama's girl and this and that, and her kids this, and my kids were always the underdogs. But I don't know. I think she was just embarrassed, or maybe because she loved my son. I'm not going to take that away from her. And she did the best that she thought she could do.
yep,
But he held a lot of things from me that maybe I could have tried to do, help. But everybody's different,
yes,
so I don't even talk with my sister now. And it's sad, and it should be a time where we should be embraced. And it's sad to feel like I do that with strangers. They're not strangers anymore, but you know what I'm saying. Like I'm
yes.
doing this with people that are not
People that
really.
aren't related to you.
Yeah, but that's okay.
It is. And sometimes those friendships that you develop after a child's died or any relative, but um, they're just more fruitful. They're more understanding.
Right.
They're more genuine, you know.
Yes.
You don't
Yeah.
have to think like I said before, when they say, I know how you feel, you don't have to question that, you know.
Right.
You don't
No, you
question that.
don't. No,
Yeah.
not at all.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how are your other children dealing with this and his father?
His dad and I, like, we don't talk a lot. I mean, it was weird though. For a while, like I would message him pictures of Dylan or things that I've done, like the billboards and stuff like that, and I wasn't getting any response. And about a month or two ago, it was weird because I hadn't dreamt of Dylan, and I had a dream of Dylan. Like he was standing in front of a wall, like sitting, I'm sorry, on a bench, and it was like a green wall. And Dylan turned around and he said, "Ma, I'm back and it's over." And I woke up and I went, "Whoa." And I look at my phone and Dylan's dad, like Dylan used to go to baseball games a lot with his dad. So Dylan's dad sent me a text. Now I hadn't heard from him in months, like a long time. And he said, "I went to a Brooklyn Cyclones game, and that was the last time I went there was with Dylan. And Dylan, and I was just thinking really much about it. And he texted me, and I was like, that is so weird that you text me because I had a dream of Dylan in front of this wall." So I'm thinking, like the baseball players when they're like waiting in the dugout. It must have been like because it was a bench and it was like a green wall that he looked
Okay.
at me.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, oh my God, because I just dreamt of Dylan and I have not dreamt of Dylan. And he was sitting on a bench, so it was weird. But he doesn't communicate with me a lot. Um, you know what? It's basically like we did what we have to do. He has a wife, and he's got his own life. He lives in New York,
Oh,
and I have my own life.
uh-huh.
So he did what he had to do as a dad, and but I was happy that he texted me because I was like, all right, like of course he loves his son. It was his child, but at least he communicated. So I think there's nothing else that we can do. He's I mean, if I called the man and needed something, I'm sure he would do so, but it's not like that. We just went on our own ways, and I did not him and my sister, they're not into the advocating stuff. My mom's kind of like, "Oh, you got that for me. You got that for me."
Aw. And
uh,
how are his siblings?
oh, the siblings. I'm sorry, I lost track.
It's okay.
Dylan. Okay, so Dylan has a sister. So his oldest sister was Julia. She's the first oldest. Then we have Autumn. Then we have Klaus, Desiree, and Gianna's the youngest. Gianna and I live together here in Florida. So Julia, this is a funny story. Julia was pregnant, and well, her daughter's now 2, and thought she was told that she was having a boy. Now, prior to this, Dylan spoke to this lady that was my sister's friend. When Dylan first died, this lady was like, she had psychic ability. She puts it like a medium, but very religious woman. And she told my sister that she was in the Dollar Tree and that Dylan was bugging her, like, and she said that Dylan told her, well, there was a couple of things, but the main part was that Dylan told her that he's going to pick out all his nieces and nephews. So now my daughter Julia is pregnant. She had a sonogram done, and they said it was a boy. Okay, so I was like, oh, you got to name him Dylan. You got to name the baby Dylan. No, I don't know if I want to name him Dylan. I don't know. I don't really know. I'm like, you got to name him Dylan. Anyway, so she had the sonogram, and now all these sonograms are advanced now. They got the pic, you could see everything in there. So it's a boy. So come to find out, when she gave birth, guess what she had? She had a girl. And you know why she had a girl? Because she didn't name him Dylan. I'm just
That's amazing.
no. But Klaus, my son Klaus, they go in and out. I mean, there's nothing else, we can do but accept. Well, we all have our moments where we miss him. We play his music. We always talk about him. We go to his grave. I go down twice a year. We go to the grave. My kids, they live in New York, so they go to the grave a little more often. My son takes Dylan's daughter a lot. He promised that he would be like a second dad to Dylan's daughter, Candace. So he does
Oh,
that.
that's so nice.
Yeah, he takes her out and does things with her all the time. And, especially the birthday, that's a tough one too, because Dylan's birthday is the same as hers. And I make a trip down there to go with the kids and,
How old
spend
is
the
she
whole.
now?
She's 10. She's
Okay.
10 years old. Yeah. And, they just keep doing what we have to do. We got to the point that we're at acceptance now. That's all. But we have our moments. I mean, I still have like my moment. Like I could just be doing something and think I'm so great, and then all of a sudden it'll just hit you and cry. I'll cry. I'll do my minute or two cry, and then I'll go back and do what I'm doing. I mean, sometimes I used to feel like I was a crazy woman at work. Like I'd go in the bathroom, I cry, and then walk out and be like, "Hi," just try
Yeah.
to put the face on and act like I'm also normal. But we're doing the best that we possibly can under this situation. But we just keep in, faith that one day we will see him again. And that's all we can do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Shine down on us.
Well, it's nice to know that he comes to you. And that's really very comforting, isn't it?
Yeah, and I never thought I was like so in tune with things. Even Andrea, who you're gonna speak to tomorrow, like she's like, Tammy, you're an empath. Like some things that I told her. And she's like, you're right about this. You're right. And I was like, I never really thought that I feel like I gained, or maybe I just never really knew of some of the abilities that I have now that I don't think I had before. Or maybe I feel like Dylan's death brought it out. Like I feel like I'm more in tune to things than I
Maybe,
was
maybe
before.
it did, maybe it did.
I don't know, or unless I like to think that.
Well, Tammy, thank you so much for being with me tonight.
Thank you, and I enjoyed speaking with you. And
Same here.
thanks so much for giving me the opportunity to speak with you. It really helps so much. And if our conversation can help somebody else, going through the grief that we're going through. And there is some light at the end of the tunnel. And just keep on having the hope and faith that, like I said, we'll see our loved ones again. And that's what's going to keep me going. And I want to make my son proud of me. And, to say, you know what, my mom is doing what she has to do. Because he did tell me, Mom, he goes, we are the champions. He told me one time, and he's like, when I was going to get my food, get that food truck on the road, and I want to see you do good, So I always had that in my head. Mom, keep it up, keep it up. I'm with you. I'm with you.
Aw. Well, I'll see you at the rally.
Yes. Okay, I'll be there.
Okay. I hope to
All
see you
right.
the night before at the meet and greet.
Yes, you're staying in the
No,
residence.
it turns out that we have business in DC on that Friday, and I didn't
Oh,
even know it. And then when I
that's
spoke
coincidence.
to April and they were telling us what weekend it was, I'm like, oh, this is a God thing.
Really?
Yes,
Oh,
because we had the hotel in DC and the plane flights and everything was done before I ever knew about the.
wow,
I know. Isn't that
that's
crazy?
amazing.
So I
Yeah.
said, oh, yeah, this is definitely a God thing.
Oh yeah, we'll definitely see you there for
Okay.
sure.
Well,
Okay.
God bless. And
I'll have one of my shirts on, my Dylan shirt or whatever. You'll we'll
what
figure
a
it out.
beautiful looking guy.
Thank you.
Really handsome.
I missed my boy.
I'm sure you do.
But
I'll look
yeah, we'll
forward
definitely.
to I look forward to meeting and giving you a big hug.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much. I
You're welcome.
enjoyed talking to you. All right.
You
Have
too.
a blessed night. Okay.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.